Hello everyone, first I just want to apologize for the voice. I am feeling a little bit under the weather, but thank you all so much for joining me for today's review. We're going to be taking a look at the ADDAX, a mid-range from Wild Discs. Now, if you haven't heard of Wild Discs before, they are not only doing great things for the disc golf community, but also for our wildlife friends as well, as a portion of all sales goes to wildlife conservation efforts around the world. Thank you, Wild Discs, for your passion in helping Earth's wildlife. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off by taking a look at the profile and feel of the ADDAX. Now, it does have a slight dome when it comes to the profile and also a pretty high shoulder, making it very comfortable when it comes to backhanded grips, but also makes it feel very deep. So for me, having smaller hands, not necessarily the most comfortable for forehand, but for backhand, it feels great. Now, with the plastic, it is a little bit slick in this lava flare, but it has a good amount of stiffness. So with this, if it's going to be a really hot or wet day, definitely bring that chalk bag out because you will need it. Alright, so how does the ADDAX fly? Well, for a lot of players, this is going to be a very neutral flying mid-range. For players with very slow arms, it's going to be semi-overstable. And then for you players with very fast arms, this is going to be a very controllable turnover mid-range. So I mentioned that for the majority of players, this is going to be a very neutral flyer. What that means is it's going to hold the angle you release it on. If you throw it flat like this, it's just going to ride incredibly straight, very little amount of turn in that mid-flight, but then at the very end, as it slows down, it'll just have a nice little baby hyzer. And if you did want to throw it on a hyzer line, well, you're not really going to get too much flip up, if any really at all. It's pretty torque resistant, so it's going to hold a nice arcing hyzer. But then when you do get it onto an anhyzer line, yeah, it's gonna hold. It has, as I said, it has decent torque resistance, but it still is going to hold that angle. So again, you put on an anhyzer, you can get it to hold a nice turn, throw it flat, just going to ride very straight, and on a hyzer, it's just going to be very predictable and just kind of hold that arcing hyzer. Get just a really good point and shoot style mid-range. Now for myself, my forehand, I get a lot more power and a lot more torque on the forehand than I do backhand. So when I do throw it forehand, I am noticeably getting a lot more turn out of the ADDAX than I do backhand. So even though it backhand wise has good torque resistance, if you're primarily looking for a torque resistant forehand thrower, this is something you're going to want to kind of power down a little bit on, give it a bit of hyzer because you are going to get considerable amount of turn. But if you're needing something out of the box that's going to then throw it flat on a forehand and hold turn almost all the way to the ground, hitting those kind of shots in the woods, then this may be the mid-range that you want to take a look at. It's also worth noting that since the ADDAX has that deep profile and deep feel, you can get considerable amount of glide out of it. So if you have the airspace, you can get some really good distance. Alright, let's go ahead, take a look at the ADDAX out on the course. This hole, very straightforward. You got trouble right, a lot of trouble left, a very defined gap down the middle, and you want something that's going to fade to the right. As a lefty, it's a simple hyzer, and because it has that resistance to torque, at least for slower arm speeds, I can trust it just dead straight and just let it hyzer out at the very end. This hole, you have a few guardian trees that is in front of the basket. You don't want to push the disc too far into that big tree straight ahead. So with the ADDAX, I just know if I give it a little bit of height, as it slows down, it's going to have a very nice harsh fade, putting me right up against the pin. So this is a very tricky hole. You have obvious danger on the right and left hand side, tree right down the middle, but then also a right to left sloping fairway. So if you hit the ground wrong, then you are going to have high potential of rolling away. You have both a left and right hand gap. For a lefty, I'm going to take the right hand gap on a turnover so I can match the disc to that sloping fairway. So we've seen what the ADDAX can do in the lava flare plastic, but it also comes in the ozone plastic as well, which is kind of much like your Champion or Z or Neutron style of plastic. Now with the ozone, compared to the lava flare, it has a little bit more torque resistance, so makes it considerably more overstable for backhand shots, but then on forehand, you don't get nearly as much turn. It has a little bit more torque resistance. It'll still be able to turn a bit, but at least it's a little bit more torque resistant, making it slightly better for forehanding shots. First, for the Lefty Lines, we're going to take a look at how the lava flare compares to the ozone plastic, and then take a look at in general how the ADDAX compares to other neutral mid-ranges out on the market. For the majority of its flight, the lava flare is going to ride very straight, and just as it slows down, that's when it's going to have a good amount of finish at the very end. When compared to the ozone, it rides very straight, just like the lava flare, but it tends to want to hyzer out a little bit sooner and even has a slightly harsher fade, making it, I think, a little bit better for windier days, and as I mentioned earlier, a little bit better for forehands. So, what neutral flying mid-ranges out on the market today does the ADDAX most closely resemble? Well, the first one I just had to try it out against was the Buzz SS, and honestly I feel like they are very close together. They both get just a little bit of turn in that mid-flight, and then have enough late stability to level themselves out and finish with a slight fade. Another mid-range I was trying out at about the same time was the Texas Ranger from Lone Star Disc, and I was interested to see just how it compared to the ADDAX. Their flight numbers are very close. The Texas Ranger on paper had the -1 turn, so I was expecting it to be just a little bit more understable than the ADDAX, but as you know, between different companies, flight numbers really don't matter much. It's hard to really gauge it because honestly, I think the ADDAX is definitely a bit flippier or more neutral than the Texas Ranger. As you can see, it does ride out straight, but it checks up pretty quickly and also has that really harsh finish at the end of the flight. Overall, I was very impressed with the ADDAX. This was a mid-range that just kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't really know what to expect out of it, but my goodness, this is a great straight flyer, a great point and shoot style mid-range. You can work on a lot of different lines, so I would strongly recommend you checking them out because I think they can really make quite a few people's bags if you give it a chance. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, visit GreatLakesDisc.com the next time you need to order discs. Use that promo code LEFTY at checkout. Save yourself 10%. I'll thank you. Your wallet will thank you. Till next time, everyone, keep banging them chains.